Hi folks, happy Friday to you. I trust that you've had an excellent reading week. And on that topic, what have I been reading? I finished Empire of Fear by Brian Stableford. This is a vampire tale, and we're in the 1620s to start with, in somewhere called Grand Normandy, which it turns out is what we currently know as Great Britain, but has been subsumed into a greater Normandy duchy after the invasion of 1066. So we find out pretty early on that history has run a different course in this book. The aristocracy are vampires. They live very long lives, up to 1,000 years. They can't feel pain. And favoured humans can be elevated to vampire ranks, and that's a way that they have of coercing and controlling the basic human population. There's a resistance movement hidden, of course, and what they want to find out is what is the source of the vampire power? How is it that vampires are made in the first place? Where do they come from? And what, if anyone could be made into a vampire, what would that do? And that quest for answers takes them to deepest, darkest Africa. They have a difficult journey eventually into the interior, and there's a lot of actual mumbo jumbo. And for me, the Africa section was overlong and it was a bit boring, and I was impatient to get back to Europe. I really enjoyed the sections in Europe, particularly the first two. I do like an alternate history tale, and there was a decent chunk of it in Empire of Fear, albeit jumbled around because various of the historical figures that star in the book are out of place due to them being very long-lived vampires. For example, Richard the Lionheart is in this book several hundred years after he died in our world, plus there's Vlad the Impaler, and even the Pope is a Borgia vampire. I enjoyed my time in Empire of Fear up to a point. The section in Africa, which was fairly lengthy, dragged for me a little bit. I thought they faffed around for far too long in that section. I think I'm right in saying that this was originally a short story and born out of the first section of the book, I think, and then he expanded it from there. And maybe it suffered a little bit for that. But generally speaking, I enjoyed it, and I really liked the sections in Europe. Interesting. And that was the last book on my official TBR for September. And as I had a few days left of the month, I picked up another book, Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh. This was her debut novel and a Hugo winner this year, which isn't bad for a first bash at writing a science fiction book. Before reading it, I'd heard mixed reports, so I was a little bit wary going in. And this book is set at some point in the future, and in living memory for the people that are in it, the Earth has been destroyed by the Majod, a sort of alien hegemony, and 14 billion humans have died as a result. Gaia Station is the home of the ragtag human resistance, and there's distinct Ender's Game battle school vibes. There are a bunch of juveniles being trained up to be the resistance fighters of the future. There are many, many different books that involve desperate humans resisting an alien invasion of one kind or another. And I thought initially, oh, here we go again. And I had heard a couple of people that DNF'd it inside the first 50 pages because it all sounded all too familiar. But no, it's different. Emily Tesh subverts expectations, or she certainly subverted mine. She flips the script on us more than once. We start off with the resistance, the rebels as the goodies, but they don't stay that way, and the aliens are baddies, and again they don't stay that way. And then we've got gruff, gen-enged warrior types who are actually sensitive and depressed. And what if the resistance is not only futile but fake? AIs are at the heart of this tale. The trainees on the Gaia station use AI to simulate their battle scenarios, and I thought she did something interesting with that. The AI, it's not a holodeck, it's not a simple arrangement, it's not just AI. That process actually creates a pocket universe for each scenario, and that has real world consequences. And in turn, the Majod, the aliens of the piece, have the wisdom, so-called, which is a kind of galactic AI that keeps the whole thing ticking over. I really liked what Tesh did with the AIs, but I can't really tell you any more without spoiling it. I thought that the characters were engaging in their various versions. I was pretty invested in the story, and I blew through it fairly quickly. I would say that it is a very contemporary space opera. It's written by a woman, fair enough, and pretty capably, I thought. And there's plenty of LGBT references and a bit of love interest along those lines. And maybe all that's enough to put you off, but I do think you'd be missing out if it does. Did it deserve a Hugo Award? Does it compare favourably with past winners? Maybe not, but a quick glance at the competition amongst the nominees for this year's award doesn't throw up any more obviously deserving winners than this one, I don't think. And finally this week, I picked up The Caves of Steel by Isaac Asimov. That's off my TBR for October. And for me, this is a blast from the past. I read it in my teens along with an awful lot of other Asimov books. It's approximately 65 years old now as a story, and I think it holds up pretty well. Earth is a crowded, enclosed place. We all live in mega cities, the caves of steel of the title, and we're following Elijah Bailey, who's a plainclothesman, a detective, and there's been a murder of a so-called spacer, one of the colonists of the many outer worlds. Elijah Bailey is partnered with, much to his chagrin and horror, a robot, a human-appearing robot, Daniel Olivor. And I like the contrast that Asimov draws between the crowded, bustling, agoraphobic Earth and the open, underpopulated, germophobic outer worlds. We don't get an awful lot of description of the outer worlds, although it does come in one or two of the later books. But at its heart, it's a detective story. I enjoyed the moving walkways, which I'd kind of forgotten about. And it's set far enough in the future that our current times are referred to as medieval. There are medievalists who are the anti-robot faction, and they cosplay at being old-fashioned and dream of a world where robots aren't taking their jobs and so on. I enjoy very much the interplay between Elijah Bailey and Daniel Olivor. I think there's a firm friendship being formed, and it was a quick read, and I'm keen to reread the others at some point when Mount TBR is perhaps less pressing than it is right now. Strictly speaking, I haven't actually finished it. I've got about 15 pages left, but I will finish it this evening, and I've read it before, so I'm going to call that good enough. Channel stuff next then. Subs are at 3375, which is up 19 on last week. And if you're one of those 19, or if you've just stumbled upon my channel for the first time today, then a huge welcome to you all. I'm John. I focus on collecting, reading, and chatting nonsense about science fiction books, old and new. Comment of the week this week was from Dale, who said something on the lines of he can't believe watching all of these booktube channels, including mine, that there are so many authors that he'd never heard of. And my response to that was something along the lines of, tell me about it. I was in exactly the same boat. I continue to be in the same boat. I'm stumbling across, one way and another, plenty of authors that I'd never heard of, both old and recent. And that's one of the main joys of doing this channel, really, is adding to my own knowledge. Thank you to Dale for taking the time to leave a comment, and the same goes for all of you that have done the same. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a quick look at what was on the channel last week. On Sunday, there was my TBR video, my choices for October, which largely consists of me staring indecisively at my shelves. And it always amazes me that anyone at all watches it, never mind the several hundred people that do. And there are those who feel that that's their favourite video of the month. Who am I to say? I enjoy doing them. I enjoy the process, and I always look forward to what I'm reading as the output of that video. On Wednesday, I had planned to publish the September wrap-up video, but I hadn't quite got around to making that, so I pulled forward the Sue Burke interview. As is always the case with interviews, it's got very low views, but this is particularly low, which I think is a bit of a shame. Sue has some great book recommendations in that video, so if you haven't watched it, I would definitely recommend having a look. On the book buying front, I think it's been a good week, certainly in comparison to the last week or two. On Sunday, I had a visit from the infamous Dave of Tilehurst, who visits every now and again to return/borrow a couple of books from my library, which is the price that I very willingly paid for the several hundred books from his science fiction collection of many decades that he offloaded on me completely free of charge in summer of 2023. So Dave pops around every now and again, and he came on Sunday, and he brought with him several books that he'd found for me while he was shopping in Hay-on-Wye. So those have gone onto my to-be hauled pile. And then also on Sunday last week, I went book shopping in London with my youngest daughter. I only came away with a couple of books, and she did considerably better than that out of me. I also went to the Oxfam bookshop in Woodley, and amongst the things that I found there was a nice slipcase set of some 1970s editions of a famous author's work. And then a couple of others have arrived in the post, including a gift from a viewer, which is always extremely welcome. All of that will be revealed in the book haul video, which will come around the middle of the month sometime. My to-be hauled pile now stands at a more healthy 25. What have I watched this week? There's some of the usual suspects, but I won't list those this time. Instead, I'll highlight a couple of smaller channels that are putting out science fiction book content. Jack at Science Fiction Finds has a little book haul, and he has some nice titles to share. Then there's Debs at Omnivorous Reader. She's in Australia, and she gives a thorough review of The Dramaturgies of Yarn by John Brunner, which is a book that I have on my shelves but I haven't yet read. As usual, I shall put the links to both of those in the description to this video in case you want to go have a look. Let's take a look ahead at what's coming on my channel. On Sunday, there will be that delayed September wrap-up video in which I shall review and rank every book that I read during September, and then I'll declare a book of the month. And on Wednesday, there will be that look at the science fiction output of the 1970s, of which there was many. It was extremely hard to choose which ones to pick. Thank you again for all of you that responded to my hailing cry for book recommendations for that video. There were plenty, and I could probably do another 3 or 4 videos. And maybe I will at some point. Slightly longer range, in the next couple of weeks, I'll have a video looking at the David Pringle 100 best books between 1949 and 1984. It's another list video. I'll be looking at how many of those I have and how many I haven't. There will be the book haul video that I referred to again in a couple of weeks' time. And I still have in mind to do a video focused on John Wyndham's post-war novels. And there will be another thematic video, and it'll either be on First Contact stories or on science fiction mysteries, depending on the results of the poll that I put in the wild today. What will I be reading? Once I finish Caves of Steel, I will be giving Take Back Plenty a go. I've been looking forward to reading this for a while. It's a space opera from the 90s. It's supposedly put the fun back in space opera. It's got a very interesting protagonist, Tabitha Jute, who's a woman, and she has her own spaceship, and she's quite sweary and quite funny, I think. And after that, I'm going to tackle Zena Henderson's Pilgrimage. That'll be the first Zena Henderson book that I've read, and I gather her writing is excellent, so I'm looking forward to that. And after that, I may well have some time for something else, but I'll decide at the time. As always, thank you for watching, and until next time, goodbye for now.